everyone. Okay.
Great.
Excellent. We are on both Facebook, welcome, and Zoom, welcome. This is our, we believe, 15th or 16th installment of SIP, Shelter in Place, on a Friday night. And we are delighted to have with us two longtime friends of the company, Elkhorn Peak, and we're going to get to Ken and Elise in a second. For those of you just tuning in, my name is Martin Cody, co-founder of Cellar Angels. We are a direct-to-consumer company, which means we focus exclusively on the small, limited production wineries, almost always 99.9% of the time from Napa and Sonoma. There might be a few rare ones in there that sneak in from Oregon, but more often than not, it's Napa and Sonoma. And we provide them via our website at cellarangels.com. And these are wines that you cannot find in your local environment. And for those of you that'll be tuning in that know Elkhorn Peak, you know you can only get their wines from the winery. Those are the stories we like to tell. Tonight, the SIP kit that people are drinking from is available online. And this is just something we do to make it easier for you. You can go to the cellarangels.com website. You can order a kit. It will have the next 6 Friday night wines in a row. So you can sit back, relax, wherever you are in the country and drink with the founders, the owners, the winemakers, and in this particular case, their daughter. But I wanted to focus on, it is the eve of the 244th birthday of our country. And I don't know if the founding fathers actually could have envisioned what has been happening and what we're going to be doing this evening. But you have a father-daughter team producing wines in arguably one of the most famous wine regions in the world. And they're joining us tonight for SIP. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Elise and Ken and thank them both for joining us this evening. Thanks, you guys. And
Hi,
cheers.
Mark. Yeah, cheers. It's really great to be here. We're so excited.
Thanks, Martin. We're looking forward to chatting with you and your guest tonight and have some fun and lighten things up and, you know, make it fun for everybody.
Yeah, there are some crazy times, that is for certain. And one thing that we always tell people is just because we may have to physically distance doesn't mean we have to socially distance. And the human psyche likes that connection. And now, because of technology, it's made all the more easier. We'll have people tonight from all over the country tune in. And again, we are heartfelt and appreciative that you guys have taken some time to spend your Friday with us. And I want to tell people kind of, or I'll actually have you tell people a little bit. Ken, I know you purchased the property in 1983. And one of the things I want to know is what were you doing prior to purchasing the property? What was the vocation?
Well, you know, contrary to what everybody thinks about, you know, grape growers in the valley, this is not something that I always dreamed about doing or had a passion to do or anything like that. I bought the ranch in Napa in 1983, and the reason I really bought it was to flip it and make some money. Quite honestly, at the time I was in the banking business. I was in commercial real estate financing. But anyhow, we bought this ranch in Napa, and I bought it with a partner of mine, and he said, well, you know, we're in Napa, let's grow grapes. And I said, you know, I don't even know what a grapevine is. I had no interest in doing it. I had a job, all this kind of stuff. Anyhow, to make a long story short, we put a couple of acres of grapes in, and then the years went by. We put a few more acres of grapes in. I bought some more land, Fast forward, you know, almost 40 years later, we make wine. We are totally immersed in the Napa Valley, the lifestyle, the wine thing. And even though it wasn't something that it was my goal to do, it's become a passion of mine and something that I consider myself extremely fortunate to be able to spend the best years of my life in the Napa Valley, raising my daughter, raising my family, and doing my thing. So it's been a nice voyage.
That is incredible. And I'm visioning back to 1983. You're in the commercial real estate banking industry, and I have this horrible image that it's late at night. There's a Carlton Sheets, no money down real estate flipping infomercial that comes on, and you're like, hey, this actually I could probably do this. Where did the idea for flipping it, was that just because of the banking side of things, and you knew a lot about commercial real estate transactions and found this plot of land and thought this would be something good to do?
No, hell no. I was looking to make some quick money. The ranch was foreclosed. It was vacant land, and what it was used to be a 900-acre sheep ranch back in the day. Now it was 28 acres, but it was deserted.
But
And-
actually, Martin, the background, the photo that you have, the virtual background, that barn
Yeah.
is actually original to the property. And my dad said when he bought it, it was filled to the brim with hay.
Yeah.
So it was sort of functional. And my dad was saying that, you know, he was getting ready to flip the ranch, and all of a sudden it just dawned on him that this ranch is for living. So
Yeah.
he decided to keep it.
It was a good decision that I made back then. And like I said, I've spent most of my life up there, and I consider myself extremely fortunate to be able to do that. And I enjoy every day I get up. It's just a fabulous deal.
No, and it's interesting. I've been there a couple times, and it is a little slice of heaven, because it's one of those areas that it's so close in proximity to density and downtown Napa, but yet a world away.
Yep.
And it's interesting in perspective, because I bet you everybody that's watching or will watch this has driven by your ranch going into the valley and going up valley. So the purchase in 1983 was very fortuitous, obviously, and has led to where we are today. But when was the decision made, what year, to plant grapes? And obviously you had to pick two cool climate varietals.
We planted grapes in 1983, the same year that we bought the ranch. Yeah. And once again, I really didn't even know what a grapevine was. So I met some people, and they said, look, you're in the south end of the valley. This is where you grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And I said, okay, sounds good to me. So we put an acre of Pinot in, an acre of Chardonnay in, started growing grapes. Then for the next couple of years, we put a couple more acres in, a couple more acres, and did it that way. And then we made some, the first year of production was 1987. We made a little homemade wine, and that was made by Kent Rasmussen, who is currently still our consulting winemaker. And I don't know if your guests know, but Kent Rasmussen in the Pinot world in the Napa Valley, he's the Pinot Noir guru. He is the Pinot guy.
Yep.
He's a good personal friend of mine. He's a poker buddy of mine. I take his money frequently at the poker table. But anyhow, he made some wine for us in '87, and our deal was we gave him the grapes and he gave us half the wine. So we started a relationship that way. And then a couple of years went by, and we sold grapes to different various wineries in the valley. And then we started in commercial production in 1992. And we said, we're going to start making wine commercially. And we've been making wine ever since then. And Kent is still our winemaker. Yeah.
That's incredible. And just a side note, Dan Godaris in Iowa, cheers to you. AJ Walker, thanks for joining us this evening.
Hi, Dan.
And Julie Fogarty, hello. That's right, at least you know Dan. And I want to get to the point to where you had Kent making wine and making Pinot Noir. And did you know at all the difficulty of Pinot Noir?
No. No.
And the cost difference too, right? Like hindsight's 2020. Pinot Noir is one of the hardest, most finicky grapes to grow, and it also fetches the lowest dollar per ton. So no, had we known, we would be cab producers, I think.
Yeah, and in the 80s, there was no money in Pinot Noir. There was no money at all in Pinot Noir. But once again, Martin, I did not know anything about grape growing. But kind of my nature is failure is not a part of my vocabulary. I knew when I took this program on that I would get it done and be good at it, because I was totally immersed in it. And you got to understand too that back in the 80s, there was no internet to rely on. How I learned, and I didn't go to any of the schools or anything, I learned in the field. And I just went over to other grape growers, said, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why are you growing this? Why you do this, da, 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 and learned it that way. So I got a real hands-on education, and I'm still farming today. I was out in the vineyard. I actually spent most of the day in the vineyard today. But you know, it's just, after you do it for so many years, it's just kind of second nature.
Well, and the interesting thing there too is there's usually a story where someone gets bit by the wine bug, and maybe they had a Burgundy Pinot Noir at a restaurant with clients, banking clients or whatever, and all of a sudden that caused them to go, holy cow, what is going on in this glass, that type of thing. And yours was really, I bought some land. Pinot's going to grow well here. I'm taking a lot of money from this Kent guy.
Yeah.
Well, I think also though, maybe it was a love for the lifestyle, the farming lifestyle, right? Because I mean, my dad started in commercial real estate working in an office, and I can tell you, I can't really imagine him sitting at a desk from 9 to 5. So, and I'm the same way. I worked in corporate for the first few years out of college, and then I just couldn't wait to like get in and do a harvest internship and just start working outside in the winery, behind the desk, like doing it all. It's more fun.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I'm gonna and one question that someone has already asked is, how many hours a day do you work in the vineyard, or and we'll go to you, Ken, on this one. Is it clearly it's not 9 to 5, at least like you just said. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so there's always something to do on a farm, always something to do on a farm.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times when you get done doing it, no one but you is going to know that it actually got done.
That's right.
I think it's a really seasonal job. I know in the spring and the summertime, especially in the summertime, you get up and you get out in the field at 6 a.m. and you work until 1 p.m. when it, it reaches the hottest point of the day and you can't be out there anymore. Yeah, go for it.
Well, the other thing, Martin, is that you got to understand this, is that I'm pretty much a one-man shop. And most grape growers in the Napa Valley, they have vineyard managers, they have brand new equipment. I'm old school. I've never bought new equipment in my life. I buy old stuff. I have a 1952.
We're gonna get to that habit.
But I fix the stuff. I work on it. I fabricate. I weld. I do whatever I need to do. So when I'm talking about farming, it's not just out there driving the tractor in an air-conditioned cab.
Right.
I don't have any cabs in any of my tractors.
Right.
It's just all open stuff
So
like that.
you're not sitting in the $125,000 John Deere in the air-conditioned cab with the satellite radio?
Not this week. No.
In fact, it's my primary responsibility to mow the vineyard in the summertime, and we just installed like a piece of fiberglass on the back of the tractor.
Plastic.
Plastic, even better, because there were so many rocks coming up and hitting me in the back of the head. I was just like, Dad, come on, this is
Yeah, this is a work hazard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't we take a second to actually show people where you are? And obviously where I am here is sitting in your front yard, but let me show some folks what we're talking about with regards to Jameson Canyon. So let me know if everyone can see
there you go.
Blue Rock. So as we zoom into Elkhorn Peak,
this is so cool.
now I'm going to stop it there because for those of the Cellar Angels that are joining us, and I see Jeff and Jane Greasy are on, and side note, Jeff and Jane Greasy haven't missed a single SIP episode.
Wow.
So they are
fantastic.
They're trying to challenge me on the attendance record. I have a decided advantage because I have to be here. They've chosen to be here, but they are feeling the pressure. They can't miss one now. But we talk often at Cellar Angels about the microclimates, the maritime influence, just the coolness of the San Pablo Bay.
Yes.
And so you're seeing it here when we zoom a little bit closer into just how close you are to that. This is a perfect example because we've talked about it a lot. By the way, still called Chardonnay Golf Course?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, we're gonna have to get on there sometime. I've never played it. So here we have Elkhorn Peak.
Mm-hmm.
And now, which one of these? Because you bought 10 acres of land in '83.
It's actually 28 acres, and there's 8 acres of vines, and that's where you've got your cursor now. Is our vineyard, the 8 acres of Elkhorn Peak Pinot Noir.
And that you also planted in '83. How many of the original rootstock is still there? All of it, or?
No. In 1990, for a lot of your guests that are really into the wine thing, phylloxera, a disease, hit the Napa Valley and wiped out the Napa Valley, and ourselves included. So all the original plantings were replanted in the early 90s because of phylloxera. So the vineyard right now is currently the second planting that was done in the mid-90s.
So the vines are 20 some odd years old though still.
Yes, they are. Right.
Perfect. And as I pull out, you get a feel for.
Hey, Martin, can you go back just a little bit again? So if you see Highway 12 down there, the main, I guess right there, Highway 12. So right there, stop right there. That's our Cabernet vineyard. We have another 10-acre vineyard that I grew Pinot on for 20 years, exactly where your cursor is. And 3 years ago, we planted right there. That's it. And that's called Vineyard 38. And we planted that to Cabernet. And we're growing some cool region Cab. We got our first crop this year, but I dropped it. I didn't want to crop it. I want to develop the vine. So next year we're going to get our first crop. So we're going to be producing Cabernet Sauvignon look forward in probably 5 years. So
wow, that's exciting news.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. I've been growing Pinot for 40 years. I thought I'd give my hand at Cab, and then Elise talked me into putting 1 acre of Cabernet Franc in so as a blender for the filler for the Cab. So it's exciting. We're doing a new thing.
And Martin, just so you know, when my dad said he farms old school, he wasn't kidding. When we planted this vineyard, it was me, my dad, our main guy, Fabian, and then we had a crew come in and help us. And every single hole for each vine was planted with a shovel. And there's like 12,000 vines out there.
That's how you do it.
That was hardcore. I will never forget that planting. Oh my God.
That's how you do it.
And I can't even fathom that. One time we planted 500 sapling evergreens, but that's not 12,000 vines.
I thought it would never end. It went on for 2 weeks.
I'm trying to, so we will leave the Elkhorn Peak tack there, but you can kind of see how close they are to San Pablo Bay. And I think both of you can talk to us a little bit about why that is so magical for Pinot Noir. And you can look down on days and see down in the San Francisco for the most part, and you get the fog, but talk to me about why this is special, this proximity.
Go ahead, Lee.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, our name, Elkhorn Peak, it's named after mountain range.
Wait. Oh, hang on. You can't say that. There's a quiz question coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, our vineyard is located at an elevation of around 400 feet. So from our vineyard, you can actually see the San Pablo Bay and maybe a portion of the San Francisco Bay on a very, very clear day. My dad claims that he can see the Golden Gate Bridge, the towers
yes,
on a very clear day, but I mean that's with a set of binoculars, I'm assuming. But anyways, the reason the proximity to the bay is so important in our elevation is that we get the nice marine bay breezes coming in the afternoon and the nice morning fog. So every morning around 9 or 10 a.m. the fog rolls in. It's a very cool fog, rolls out by around 12 or 1 p.m. And then sometime in the afternoon around 3 o'clock, the bay breezes start and last until sundown. So that's really great for a very sensitive grape like Pinot Noir because it's protected from things like sunburn thanks to the fog, and it's extremely susceptible to other diseases like rot because the clusters are so tight. So that nice breeze we have, the bay breeze in the afternoon, helps keep the clusters dry.
Oh, that's interesting. And that's something I did not know. Obviously the coolness and the climate I'm aware of, and the sensitivity to the heat variations that Pinot Noir does not like at all, completely different than Cabernet. But that those bay breezes is fascinating because you're right, you have such dense clusters that mildew and rot and those sorts of things are susceptible to that. Interesting. It's very cool. And since we already talked about how you got the name, why don't we launch our first quiz question? There's a lot of money riding on this question. So, all right, audience, let's see how festive and in the holiday mood people are in to see where their brain cells are. Where does the name of the winery come from? The numerous elk antlers found while clearing the land, the famous nearby Elkhorn Peak mountain that Elise just mentioned, the second or sacred elk burial ground near the vineyard. See, that's why I should have my glasses on. All right, these guys are smart. 100%.
Wow. Well, I gave it away, so.
You did give it away. No more hinting.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So is and Elise, I want to chat with you a little bit now. Is this, you grew up in the vineyard, I mean, for all intents and purposes. And I've seen the pictures, and the pictures are absolutely adorable. I think everyone that goes to the Elkhorn website and look at some of these pictures of, the stroller in the vineyard, what is the thing called that you put babies in? Stroller. No, the seat.
Yeah, the carrier, baby carrier.
Baby carrier. You can tell the guy that doesn't have. But no, and you're sitting there in the vineyards. Is this was this something that you always wanted to do, or was it something that, oh boy, I need some help?
No, I never really thought growing up that I would work for the family business. I always helped out, right? During harvest, it was all hands on deck, and I'd go out and take pictures when I was really into photography in high school and stuff like that. But no, after high school, I went away to college. I moved to San Francisco, and I had no idea that my future would be in wine. But I worked in marketing, and then eventually made my way to the wine industry and was working in marketing for Gloria Ferrer Winery. And some things happened there. They were purchased by a very, very big corporation. And I just thought, I really want to stay in wine. And like, what the heck am I doing? Like, we have a family label. So I went back home, and there was definitely no job waiting for me when I came home. Let me make that very clear. I had to like sell myself as a candidate and then work for free for a year.
Whoa.
And then and then I got hired, kind of made my own position, and now I do a lot of the logistics stuff. I'm following my dad around the vineyard as much as I can. I want to learn everything I can about grape growing. I follow our winemaker Kent around. I probably call him way too much and ask him so many questions, but I'm just so fascinated by winemaking. And I'm just here to sort of alleviate some of the administrative tasks too from both of my parents in terms of, sending out emails and inventory and, a lot of the boring back end stuff.
And just so you know, Elise, unpaid internships were the norm. So
it worked for me.
Exactly.
Now I put it this way: when I accepted a harvest internship in Napa, everyone was like super appalled at the pay, and I was just like, "Well, wait a minute, this is a paid internship. This is legit." Right. Yeah.
I actually thought someone was joking one time at Cellar Angels when they said, "No, you have to pay the intern." I'm like, "No, we don't." But apparently, you do these days. So what year did you decide to come after what year was that you had the internship?
I had my internship at a Napa winery, Harvest 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long have you been full-time at Elkhorn Peak? Since 2018 or?
Since 2017. Yeah, I came on and worked for a year at Elkhorn Peak, just helping out, doing what I could. And then I figured I really need some cellar experience, and I wanted to go to a Pinot Noir house and see how they're making Pinot Noir. So I got an internship at Fela. If anybody's familiar with Fela, they make incredible Pinot Noir.
Yes,
so that was just a blast. And they make a lot of different Pinot Noirs, a lot of different clonal blends. So I really learned a lot.
And so that was 2017 when you came over here, and 2017, oddly enough, was also the year of the fires. So tell us a little bit about that. And were you impacted? I mean, you and I talked about this, I think, when we were on site a year or so ago, but it was a pretty harrowing experience.
Yeah.
The fires were devastating to Napa. And the unfortunate thing about the fires of 17, which most people don't understand, is that 90% of the fruit had already been harvested in the valley. There was a little fruit remaining, some cab in some areas, things like that, but the majority of the fruit had been harvested. Our grapes had been harvested 6 weeks prior, and they were already in barrel. So, there's kind of this misconception about the Napa wines of 17, they're smoke tainted, they're burnt, they're da-da-da. That's not reality. First, what you got to understand is that it really didn't affect the grapes. if there was any negative impact on the wine production, it wasn't from the vineyard, it was in the winery, because a lot of the Cabernet at that point was in the tank. And a lot of the tanks are chilled with glycol, with pumps and stuff like that. So a lot of wineries lost their power, which means the pumps didn't work, which means they couldn't control the tank temperatures. So if there was any adverse effect on the wine, it wasn't from the vineyard side, it was from the production side. But most people that we've talked to said that it really wasn't an issue at all. I think the biggest problem that the public perception is not a quality production, it's a marketing quality perspective, it's a marketing perspective. And all the talk is, well, 17 fires burned up, da, da, da. Well, reserve the judgment. When the 17 cabs come out, taste those and then make your own decision on that. But I think you'll find there might be pretty darn nice wines.
I agree. And let's talk about the 17, because what Cellar Angels and everybody that's watching right now on Facebook and Zoom, you're in for a treat, because the 2017 Pinot Noir from Elkhorn Peak, 100% estate fruit, 100% Pinot Noir.
Yep.
And by the way, it's only available to Cellar Angels. It has not yet been released to their current customer base. So Elise has a marketing background, and apparently that's a good idea to give it to us, but we are thrilled with that. So I want to try to entice you all to buy as much as you possibly can. And Elise is going to help me with a prop, because as you see in my picture, gorgeous canine, and every winery has a dog. At least all the cool ones do. And I have no Harvard Business white paper on that, but every winery that I know that's cool has a dog. So what we're going to do, and Elise has agreed, and this is where her marketing skill and expertise comes in, everybody that buys 6 bottles of wine of the Elkhorn Peak Pinot Noir, Dan Godaris, I know you have this in you, you will get a copy of the most recent version of the coffee table book, Napa Valley Wine Dogs. And this is a thick book, very well done. When we had the retail bricks and mortar wine store, we used to sell this in the store for $49.
Yep, it's a cool book.
It's a very cool book. And this little guy right here is in the book. Look at him.
Yep.
That's
6
Monty.
bottles.
That's our winery dog. If anybody from the Elkhorn Peak mailing list is tuning in, you guys have probably met Monty.
Yep.
I don't know how you cannot. Monty's a blast.
Monty's a pain in the ass.
So 2017, we've talked about the fires, no impact whatsoever. And I think one of the things that intrigued me, Ken, about the story is your passion for growing the right grapes. And I don't mean varietal, but I mean the way you take care of the vineyard, the way you take care of the vines, the way you actually do what you do from a farming mentality. Talk to me about the philosophy of it doesn't matter. You have to take care of the vine because the vine's going to produce the best fruit if it's taken care of. Where did that come from? And what are some of the things you do to make certain that the vine is producing the best fruit?
Well, Martin, here's my philosophy on it. I'm an old school grower, and my philosophy is to let the grapes do their own thing. And what I mean by that is this. A lot of the grape growers in the valley now, they're very, tech oriented, and I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with it at all. It's not really my style. And let me give you an example. One of the big issues in growing wine grapes is when do you irrigate? Because irrigation is a very important factor on producing flavors, stressing the vines out, all this kind of stuff to get the fruit that you want to make the best wine. A lot of management companies and vineyard owners, they have weather stations in the vineyard. They're all tied to their PC. They're $50,000 machines. They input all this data. They tell you, how much water your vines are using, stress, all this kind of stuff. And they tell you when to irrigate. Well, you know how I do it? I go out in the field. I walk the field. I look at the vines. And after farming for almost 40 years, you can tell when your vines need a drink. And when they need a drink, you give them some water, okay? It's not that difficult. And everybody has this conception about, this high-tech vineyard, philosophy in the Napa Valley. Listen, they've been growing grapes for thousands of years. It's not that difficult. Pinot Noir is a difficult variety. Yes, I will agree to that, but I tend to take I tend to take a hands-off approach. I kind of let the vines do their thing. I let the way we prune, the way our pruning technique is, I let them balance themselves, because vine balance is critical, and crop load in Pinot Noir is very, very critical. So I'm all about canopy management. We shoot thin, we leaf, we open up the canopy, we get air circulation, we get sunlight into the vines, all this old school stuff, but it grows good fruit. And, I've been kind of doing it my way for a long time, and we consistently develop good fruit and, make consistently good wine.
And Martin, you can imagine my first vintage, following my dad around the vineyard furiously with my little black notebook. I'd come out and be like, okay, tell me, how we can tell to irrigate. He'd be like, look at the plant. Does it look droopy? I was like, that's it. But I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. But yeah, it's mostly just go out and look at the plants, get to know what they look like when they're happy. And if they look anything else but that, start troubleshooting.
Yeah, and every year is different depending on the weather. Every year is a challenge. It's interesting. It's a challenge. When do you start irrigating? How long do you irrigate? When do you cut the irrigation off? All that kind of stuff. But it really comes from experience. And I'm not a rocket scientist, but I don't need to be. I'm a farmer. I'm growing grapes. Okay, how hard can that be on that? So just take a make sense approach to it. Use logical, common sense, and do what you need to do.
And Martin, I love my dad's philosophy. This is my 4th year farming with my dad. And first year or two, it was things like, if it rained at all in May, I was like freaking out. Oh my God, what's this gonna do to fruit set? My dad is always just cool as a cucumber over here. Whatever will be this vintage. And that's sort of his philosophy every year. And I love that so much, that approach that just, you work with whatever Mother Nature gives you every year.
That's right.
And there's not much you can do to intervene, because she is powerful.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and she's thrown some curveballs in the last 7 to 10 years, and it's very almost a stoic Marcus Aurelius type of philosophy, where you don't react to what you think might happen. Just take it as it comes. Do the best you possibly can with what you have in the moment, and not worry about something in the future, not worry about something in the past. So, but at least to your point, that comes with wisdom. Wisdom usually comes with age and experience. So it's not accidental that philosophy has borne you well, Ken, for a number of years.
Well, I've got the age part covered. No worries on that. No, but Martin, I do want to add to that. And what, like Elise said, is that what I learned long ago about growing grapes is simply this, okay? You can't change your farming. You're at Mother Nature's whim. You can't do anything about it. So the worst thing you can do about it is stress about it, because that's not going to change. Listen, our lives are stressed to the max anyhow. Everything stresses you out. But if you start getting stressed about stuff you can't control, you've got yourself in a bad place. So whatever happens, happens. Roll with it. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. But you can't change it. So just accept it and move on.
Love this guy. That's great, right? Love it.
100% agree. And if you're just joining us, this is Psychological Talk with Ken, Elise, and Martin.
I tend to get that way.
Actually, if you are just joining us, thanks and welcome to another Friday Night Sip Adventure. I'd like to thank our sponsors, and we're done. And we have no sponsors still. I'm upset with Brooks Brothers. I'm now wearing a Ritz-Carlton shirt. So Ritz-Carlton, if you'd like to reach out and help sponsor a couple segments, I'm a big fan of your luxury travel. Don't get to stay there often enough. The portfolio is growing. You've planted Cabernet. You've had Chard and Pinot. Walk us through kind of, is there a rosé? Is there a sparkling in the future or current? I mean, give people a sense of what's going on in the portfolio. Marketing girl.
Yeah, we're predominantly Pinot Noir producers. So our total production is just around 1,000 cases annually. I'd say 600 cases or more are usually Pinot Noir. We have currently a Pinot Noir and a Pinot Noir Reserve. This vintage will be the first vintage. We are going to be doing a clonal specific Pinot Noir. So vintage 2020 will feature the Swan clone. Oh, time out.
I'm out. Now, this is getting kind of geeky and I love it because you plant a number of clones, and as a farmer, you obviously get to experience and experiment with the clones. So why the variation pivots to go to a different clonal version?
You know, okay, this is an interesting story. So I got married in June of 2019, and I told you in 2018, I was doing my harvest internship. And of course, you know, these 12-hour days in the cellar as a harvest intern weren't enough for me, and I wanted to do my own project outside of that too. So in 2018, I asked my dad if I could have a half ton of grapes to try and make my own Pinot Noir on the side. And he said, sure. He thought I was crazy. So
Nice.
My husband and me made a Pinot Noir in 2018 for our 2019 wedding. And the grapes we happened to use were the Swan clone, and the wine was beautiful. The wine was absolutely beautiful. And I had never I've had a Dijon clone specific Pinot Noir, but I haven't found a Swan clone Pinot Noir. And it's a beautiful, beautiful wine. So, you know, we looked at it again the following year, and it was great. And yeah, so 2020, we were doing our first clonal specific Pinot Noir. It won't probably release for 3 or 4 years, but I promise it'll be tasty when it does.
Yeah, so you know, Martin, this is the nice thing about having my daughter, a millennial, a young person involved in the business. So I've been running the business for 25, 30 years, right? So along comes Elise, and now all of a sudden we're doing Zoom tastings, we're doing you know, Facebook stuff, Instagram stuff, all this kind of stuff, which is critical for today's marketing. It's what you got to do. But not only from the marketing aspect has she added collateral to the mix here, but now she's getting involved in the farming and the winemaking, and she goes, well, let's make a clonal Pinot Noir. And I said, okay, that sounds great to me. So, you know, what I like to describe with Elise's involvement in the operation now, she has the passion that I had 30 years ago. And that's like a shot in the arm to me, because all of a sudden now, you know, hey, let's do that. Let's try that. Let's do this. It's all coming back. You know, the juices are flowing, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, now it's interesting because at least you talked a little bit about how you had really never planned on going into the family wine business. And Ken, did you ever silently want her to pursue this, or did you want her to run as far and as fast as she could from the business?
Well, I'll sum it up like this, okay? This is what it used to be. I would be hosting guests, and they go, "Well, are you kids going to take over the business?" And I go, "No." And they go, "Oh, that's too bad." I said, "Wait a minute, it's not too bad, but you got to understand, it's not about what I want for my kids. It's about what they want for themselves. It's your life. You run with it however you see fit." So when my daughter came around the circle and came to me, and I never approached her, never had any thought about it, and said, "I want to be involved in the business," I said, "Okay, that's fine."
You said, "Okay, you're going to work a year for free."
Yes. No, he said it just like that. "Oh, okay, fine."
Yeah.
Like it was so casual.
I thought that it might have been a little whim, and you know, you get to do it, and then you fall off the other end. And
that's why I had to work a year for free. I had to see how serious I was.
You gotta pay your dues. You gotta pay.
No, that's the school of hard knocks right there, baby. That's old school.
But anyhow, this is a decision that Elise made, not a decision that I made for her. So if she makes the decision, then that says a lot. So the fact that she's decided that this is what she wants to do, it suits me just fine. But if she doesn't want to do it, that suits me just fine too. But if she's going to commit herself, then damn it, girl, you're going to work your ass off, because it is a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work. It's not an easy deal like a lot of people think. It's tough, but it's rewarding.
And you know, Martin, when I was a kid, the reason
Oh boy. Is that us or them? I may have
no,
lost.
we're on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go.
Are we back?
Yep. When you were a kid, what happened?
Okay. Oh, I saw how hard my dad was working. I mean, that's the thing about farming is there's no such thing as a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. If it's raining or if it's terribly windy or if there's something that breaks, you go out and fix it. It could be 7 a.m., 10 p.m., Sunday, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, I grew up seeing my dad work 24/7 on that, and I never really thought that was like the life for me, but here I am. And I actually love it. I love it so much. Being committed 24/7 to this industry I couldn't imagine anything else.
Well, and I think it's also interesting too, when you leave a 9 to 5 job or you leave the concrete jungle type of thing and you work with the land, there is a connection that happens naturally and organically, I think, in each individual, because when you start seeing the cycles of nature, you start seeing the whole ebb and flow of the energy. And there is something really intrinsic about working the land. And you're right, Elise, it can be pouring outside. And when a farmer sees that it's pouring outside, well, that's time to work in the barn and sharpen some of the blades and sharpen some and work some of the equipment, because that's a free day. You don't have to be out in the vineyard. That's a day to catch up type of stuff. And it's 24/7. I understand that completely. I did have a question, Ken, for you. So I'm going to throw up another poll question. I think it's this one. Ken, if you weren't growing and producing wine, you would be traveling as a host for the Antique Roadshow, own and manage the largest slot machine repair franchise, maybe something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and I don't know, because it's interesting that you came from a banking background and a commercial real estate background. And I'm going to give it about 5 more seconds to see if we get a couple more people to answer, put down their drinks, drop the appetizer, and run over to the computer and answer that. 3, 2, 1. So before you share, or before you tell us, Ken, I'm going to let you know what the audience felt.
Okay.
They think that you would own and manage the largest slot machine repair franchise.
That would have gotten my vote.
Now, I don't know what you would have done if you weren't farming. I do know that you have a passion for antiques. A passion might be kind. It might actually be clinically an obsession. And I see Elise nodding. But talk to me about that. Talk to me about, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I think farmers are tinkerers and repairers and refurbishers, kind of, necessity is the mother of invention, right? You're going to fix it. I don't have time to call anybody type of stuff.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And did that, but you've got antique pinball machines at the house that you've refurbished. How did that happen?
Well, as long as I can remember, since I was a little boy, like 9 years old, I was working on mini bikes and motorcycles, and I just grew up fixing things, and that's what I've always enjoyed doing. But maybe 40, 50 years ago, I got an antique slot machine, and the thing intrigued me. Not simply the mechanics of it, but the philosophy behind it. A machine that you could make that people would stand in front of and lose their money and have a good time. I mean, how cool is that?
When were you and I in Vegas? How did you see that happen?
So anyhow, over the years, I've kind of developed into a slot machine guy. I have a pretty extensive collection of antique slot machines. It's kind of a side business I have. I just enjoy working on them. I like finding them dead, bringing them back to life, making them work again, and that kind of stuff. All the mechanics of it, the thought process behind it, the philosophy of it. I just like working on things, and because I'm a farmer and a grape grower, and I work on, I have old equipment, I'm working on it all the time, fixing it, fabricating, making it better. Well, this broke. How can I fix it so it won't break the next time? And da da da. So it's just something that I'm a hands-on type of guy, and slot machines absolutely intrigue me, and they still do, and it's my passion. And when I'm not farming, I have a whole shop set up to repair slot machines, and I kind of get lost in my own world and do my thing. It's you know, everybody has their own thing, and I have a lot of things going on, cars and motorcycles and slot machines, but I like slot machines. They're cool.
Well, and I think it's interesting. You're right, because they've been around a long time.
Yes, they have.
So someone a long time ago recognized the psychological inability for someone to stop, and it's that instant gratification type of thing that, I mean, by the way, we're still guilty of it now. Everyone hears their phone beep and they have got to go to that. And so it's just a different form of bells and whistles and bright lights. But I certainly see in your future, potentially, I'm not the marketing person here, but maybe an Elkhorn Peak based slot machine and or pinball machine. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Oh, I like that.
Well, maybe on my next time through, but I don't think I got time for it in this life. I got them all stacked up.
Let me chat a little bit about wine. Elise, you mentioned that you were going through the portfolio and you talked about a reserve Pinot Noir.
Yes.
And reserve is not a legal term. So how do you determine what is a reserve Pinot Noir and what is the framework around that program?
Sure. So we have, on average, 40 barrels of Pinot Noir every year from our 8-acre vineyard, and we taste them periodically. So my husband and me, we just did this maybe 2 weeks ago because we're bottling in July. We did our final barrel tasting, and at that point, we taste every single barrel, all 40, and we take notes on each barrel, and we select a handful of barrels for the reserve. And this reserve program is for barrels that exhibit, you know, exceptional finesse, essentially, really nice, bright, fruity flavors, something about the oak. We have a limited number of new oak barrels. Most of our wine is aged in neutral oak barrels, but we do have a few new oak barrels, and those tend to impart flavors like really smooth vanilla, give you that nice creamy mouthfeel. So usually the new barrels make it into the reserve as well, but every year it's about 10 barrels that make it into the reserve, and everything else is equally as exceptional, but goes into our regular Pinot Noir program. So
I've got like 7 questions, 5 that I have, 2 that the audience has, and on the reserve you taste 40 barrels. Over how long of a time frame are you tasting them?
We taste them in essentially one day. We pull barrel samples and then we taste immediately. It's a long day. I'm already hearing in my own voice palate fatigue and that sort of thing. And so I think that's actually, the key challenge. Kent Rasmussen, he gave me a tip and a trick. So what you do is you taste 5 barrels against each other, and then you take a 15-minute break. You drink some water, you have a palate cleanser, and then you taste another 5 barrels. So essentially you're just tasting 5 barrels against each other and rating them 1 through 5, and then repeating the process however many times you have to. I mean, 40 barrels is a lot, but you know, that's 8 different sessions, and we can get that done. Don't get me wrong, it took us 8 or 9 hours to get that entire you know, to get through it all, but yeah, that's the way to
and you have to take copious notes too, because I've been involved in blending sessions where you're like, wait, hang on a second, what was that barrel 3 that was this or that? And so it goes south in a hurry. Ken, actually a different question. Someone wants to know, what is your oldest pinball machine or slot machine that you've repaired?
The oldest slot machine I have is probably 1922 or 1923.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a gambling problem all the way back then.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the reserve program, and Elise, you're going to want to see in August, I don't know if you know Kim Vance from Zoetic, but she geeks out over Pinot Noir as well. And she does very similar to kind of what you're doing, clonal things. And you mentioned the Swan clone, which is a clone I've never heard of. So you're familiar, obviously, with Dijon, Pomard, 777. I mean, all of them. And you plant, I think, Ken, 4 or 5 different clones.
Yes, right.
We have
And then-
5 clones. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
We have Dijon 114, Dijon 115, Pomard, Swan, and then we have this mystery clone called our clone, named after Kent Rasmussen, our winemaker.
Mhm.
And it's a clone he brought to us. You know, he worked at Mondavi and a bunch of other wineries, and it was just sort of a clone he brought to us, and he said, Ken, you got to plant this. And and so of course Ken did. And it's a really big Pinot Noir
Yeah.
cluster clone.
It's a clone that I went out to his vineyard. Him and his father farmed 10 acres out in the Carneros region for a number of years. And I went out there and I cut budwood off of his Pinot Noir vineyard. So it's field selected. And then we took the budwood over to our vineyard and buttered it into our rootstock. So it's a field blend on that. But the reason I was interested in it because Kent's father, Alex Rasmussen, was selling this his Pinot Noir to Mondavi back in the 80s for $1,800 a ton, which was unheard of. That's when Pinot was going for $900 a ton. Alex was getting $1,800 a ton. And Kent, and the real interesting thing about that is Kent was making wine back in the 80s out of this clone, and he's still making it now with our wine. So if anybody understands our Pinot Noir and our clones and our farming philosophy, it's Kent Rasmussen, because he's made our wine since day one. And for your guests that don't know Kent Rasmussen, like I said, the guy is a Pinot Noir guru in the valley. He was the first guy in the Napa Valley to do open bid fermentation. He's a genius. He's a very cool guy.
He's like a Pinot Noir whisperer.
Yeah. Call him whatever you want, but he makes good Pinot, and he's a nice guy.
Well, let's talk about the 2017 that you have and that everyone has in their glass. So
Yeah.
You don't make a lot of wine, which is one of the things that we love, because as we've learned in the last 40 minutes or so, it's ours. Got the
Yeah, we're
2017.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, and this is why we love telling the stories that we tell, is that you mentioned earlier, you walk the vineyard. So your dedication to craft and attention to detail is noticed in the bottle. And this one, I think there's under 500 cases made of the 2017. And so what, Elise, if you want to if we can get geeky here, kind of tasting notes we'll do on the fly, and what should people be experiencing? Ken, if you remember 2017 growing season, optimal, suboptimal, heavy, wet, cold, those sorts of things. Tell me what you're seeing in the fruit as we're tasting it.
Sure. So this wine is very young as well. I get a lot of bright red cherry. Some of our more aged Pinots really exhibit the black cherry more, but this to me is bright cherry. I get a lot of raspberry, strawberry. In our young Pinot Noirs, we also get a lot of pomegranate, which is the sweet and the high acid a little bit. I get a little bit of vanilla. Maybe that's probably attributed to our oak program for sure. And then on the finish, right, just the acid, the structure is nice. It's nice and tart. It has the red cherry, pomegranate. Yeah, I think it's drinking beautiful, very fresh and very vibrant right now.
So Martin, my take on the 17 Pinot, and when Elise and I opened the bottle downstairs about an hour ago and poured a glass, and I haven't had it for months, and when I did prior to that, it was just a little bit. But my first explanation was cherry bomb. Now, I don't know if I said cherry bomb because of the 4th of July, because when we were kids, we used to have cherry bombs. I don't know if it's filmed today, whatever, but I got just this burst of cherry on that. Very, all of our Pinots always exhibit very prevalent fruit characteristics. They're considered very fruit forward wines, but this one, man, just blasted my face cherry on that. So very, very nice wine. Very, very nice wine. I'm enjoying it. Like Elise said, it's still what I'd consider a younger wine, meaning that it'll continue to develop and develop with age. but it depends stylistically how you like your wines. If you like them fresh, fruit forward, all that kind of stuff, drink them right now. If you want to lay down, get a little more subtleties, characteristics, let them lay down. But it definitely's got that punch of cherry in the front end. Yeah, it's just nice.
And Elise, it's funny because I do get the cherry. I don't get cherry cola, which I often get in a lot of younger Pinot Noirs that I think are not well made. I don't know where that cola comes from. I don't know if it's something that's introduced or not. But it has a really long, smooth finish too. And it's just soft, velvety, which I like from that standpoint. It's not the Swizzlers or the watermelon or the candied fruit, but it has a great, and Ken, this is probably attributed to the growing aspect too in the viticulture of just that pureness of fruit, a little earthiness, but not that cloying sweetness that a lot of the Pinot Noirs have.
Right.
So
That earthiness you mentioned, Martin, that's a characteristic of our Pinot Noir that I haven't seen replicated in many other Pinot Noirs. And I attribute that 100% to our soil. So we have a soil type called the Fagan series soil, named after Fagan Creek, which runs along both sides of our vineyard. We're the only vineyard in Napa County with this soil composition, and it's a very marginal soil. It's very, it's 2 feet of clay, loam soil, topsoil, and then underneath that, it's very, very dense clay. So the berries that we get, they're very small and they're very powerful.
Yeah, I like to describe, I know this sounds stupid, but I like to describe our soil as crappy soil. It's not good soil, it's marginal soil. Okay, it's not rich. You go to the Napa Valley, down in the Napa Valley, they have 40 feet of alluvial topsoil. It's very rich, very vigorous plants. But in the hillsides where we grow Pinot, it's lousy soil. It's marginal soil. So we have vines that are 20 years old and the stalks are 2 or 3 inches. If you were down in the valley floor, they'd be 8 or 9 inches around.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that we have stunted growth. We have lower yields, but we have intense flavors. And I attribute that our characteristics more predominantly are flavors to the stress that the vines exhibit because they're so stunted and they're low yields. But they're healthy, they do well, but they're not super vigorous vines. But it's all about the soil conditions.
And on that note, with the small, powerful berries, so our rosé that we make is a blend of Pinot and Chardonnay, because Kent Rasmussen told us, don't make a Saignée with your Pinot Noir. The berries are too small and they're too mighty, and it makes a killer Pinot Noir. So don't mess with that, because if you start bleeding juice off in the Saignée method, you're going to concentrate it and really mess up the flavors. So yes, our Pinot Noir is a true expression of the fruit that grows on this site, and we don't mess with it at all.
no, and it's interesting. Jeff Greasy, who is responding, that says, "Oh my God, Elise, you guys are rocking it. Can't wait to see where you take this." And actually, as a question I want to ask, where do you want to take Elkhorn Peak, say in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, my main goal is to just keep the legacy going, keep doing what we're doing, and I don't know, we're releasing a couple new SKUs, right? I talked about the Swan clone. We actually just last week we released our first sparkling wine. It's a little hard to see. Yeah. So this label art for everybody, this is inspired by Ken's pinball collection. So there's no messing with the good Pinot, the classy label, but we only have 15 cases of this sparkling wine. So my dad said, do whatever you want. I wanted a really nice, colorful, metallic label, and that's what we got. Making Pet Nat, that's a fun wine to drink when you're, in the game room playing some pinball. That's the wine you want to go drink.
Martin, I might respond to Jeff's question about where do we perceive this thing going in the future? And my answer to that is wherever it takes us. And I don't mean to be facetious on that, but let's just roll as each day goes by, see how it goes, and whatever happens, happens. I don't want to sound like a hippie guru or whatever, but life's complicated. Let's take each day at a time. Let's see what happens. Let's make good wine. Let's share it with our friends and our, wine club members and things like that. And if it leads to bigger things, whatever it leads to. But
Yeah.
it's all about the quality of life.
Our focus also is just to make wine from our estate.
Yeah.
So we're never going to, we make 1,000 cases a year. We have enough fruit to make maybe up to 2,000 cases a year, but then we're maxed out and we'll never go beyond that. You know, it's a small family business and that's what it'll be forever. And that's how we like it.
There's a great book, by the way, in the 80s, early 90s called Small Giants. And it was about small businesses that decided to stay small as opposed to selling out. And there's actually some household names in there. But with regards to where you are and that sparkling, a couple folks want to know, is that 100% sparkling with Pinot or what is that?
Okay, this is the sparkling. It's a 2019. It's 100% Chardonnay. It's a pet nat. And another reason that I was inspired to make the label a pinball art label was because much like the game of pinball, when you're making a pet nat, most of the winemaking happens behind the glass.
What is a pet nat?
Oh, okay. So pet nat is it's a sparkling wine making technique that actually predates champagne. So it's been around for thousands of years. It's kind of a hipster wine. I think now a lot of hipster wineries are making it. It's much easier to make than champagne, or I should say it's much quicker to make than champagne. Champagne you usually lay down for 3, 4, 5+ years. This is a 2019 pet nat. So what it is I harvested the grapes at a girlfriend's vineyard in Carneros, 100% Chardonnay. We waited for the bricks to go down to 2 bricks, and then we bottled. So it had a 10-day fermentation in tank and then went straight to bottle. Wow. So we periodically tasted the bottles just to make sure they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And lucky for us, they were. And then here it is today.
It's damn good too.
There you have it. That's the official
I'm not
review.
a bubble type guy, but I like it. It's nice.
And this is pretty consistent with how the new SKUs roll out in Elkhorn Peak. Usually it's me trying to experiment with something, and then I put it in front of my dad, and if he says it's okay, that's like a major compliment.
Thumbs up approval right there. Let me do this. I'd be remiss if I didn't actually introduce something that is near and dear to our hearts, and I know it's near and dear to yours. Elise is actually behind a group and really passionate about a organization called Save the Family Farms. And many of you at Cellar Angels know that we added them as our most recent charity recipient. And you can go to the website and you can actually, when you transact and purchase wine from Cellar Angels, you can grab 6 bottles of wine of the Elkhorn Peak or 12. Shipping is the same. It's only $10. With 6 bottles of wine, you get the winery dog book. But when you check the box that says Save the Family Farms, we donate a portion of the proceeds from your transaction to this organization. So Elise, in the closing 90 seconds or so, tell us a little bit about this organization and what it's designed to do and how we and all wine lovers can help.
I would love to. So yes, Save the Family Farms is an official nonprofit. Our mission is to keep small family farms viable for future generations. If you guys are Napa wine purchasers or you've been to Napa frequently, you know that we are sort of in an era of the corporate buyouts. Little small family farms it's hard to follow the current regulations and be able to make a living. And we actually are foreclosed from offering tastings at our ranch because we can't get through the regulatory process. The regulatory process, it's a one-size-fits-all application. So, we're standing in line with the wineries that are making 50,000 cases a year or 1 million cases of wine a year. And we just can't afford to participate in this regulatory process. So Save the Family Farms mission is to get a right size set of regulatory processes for small family farms. We can't be held to the same standards as these 1 million case production corporate entities. And as a result, it's putting a lot of us out of business. So, I was born and raised in Napa. I've seen a lot of my friends who had small family farms similar to this situation sell their farms. They just simply couldn't do it. So we're hopeful that we can go to this board of supervisors late this summer or early this fall and get a micro winery ordinance passed in Napa, which would allow small family farms like us the ability to host guests on site.
without spending $5 million to build a winery, which makes no economic sense.
Yep.
No, and that is, it's funny because Denise and I have been going to the Valley for 25 plus years, and I know a lot of our customers have as well. And some of their most enjoyable experiences are not in the marble foyered fountain.
That's right, Martin.
Type of environment, but rather where they're sitting with the two of you on the back porch, thieving a barrel of wine and sitting down and learning the story. So we will do our part and continue to do our part where we can help save the family farms. I'd be remiss if I didn't actually, tell you both once again, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. The wine is delicious.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
The story is heartwarming, and it just goes on to again, every wine has a story. Usually the story is only eclipsed by the people making it. And this is certainly the case with Elkhorn Peak. So Ken and Elise, thank you so much for this. Next week, we'll be featuring Maldonado Vineyards. We will be talking about death and resurrection. And oddly enough, it has nothing to do with Easter. So thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe. Happy birthday, America.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Do
Martin.
yourselves a favor, drink a bottle of the good stuff. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you guys for
Thank
joining.
you.
Sure.